Yeah,
It is 1:30.
because I knew it was.
Yeah.
Oh, is it time? Go.
Yeah, 1:30.
Where's
Where's Evan?
He said he was coming back.
Okay. Good afternoon. This is Benzie County Study Session, formerly Committee of the Whole. Today is May 9th, 2023. We are in the Frank Walter House Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Here.
Donat,
Yeah, here.
Markey,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Roloff,
Here.
Bauer,
Present.
Worsakki.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any changes they'd like to make?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. And in support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. We have minutes from April 11th.
I wasn't here.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved, and that opens our first public comment. I invite you to the podium, please.
Hello, I'm Karen Mallon. I currently work as a victim advocate for the Benzie County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. I've worked for the county for almost 12 years now. No, that's not right. 11 years. So this November, 11 years I've been a county employee. I gladly work here and I proudly serve the residents of our great county. So I'm just here today because I'd like to ask the board to be mindful of implementing a benefit program that at its inception and introduction systematically excludes about 95% of county employees. I believe a benefit program should be all-inclusive. I imagine that the sheriff's office employees, that police officers, corrections officers, dispatchers, road commission employees would also like to participate in a program such as the Infant in the Workplace program. So again, I ask you if you could just be mindful of how this program excludes so many employees of the county. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sonia Potts. I work in this county. I don't live here, but I do work here. I'm not a taxpayer per se here. I would like you to also think about the infants in the workplace. As we all know, new mothers are usually quite harried at the beginning, so I don't understand how they could possibly do a quality work product if they're constantly dealing with the crying baby. All the stuff changing and feeding and all that stuff that goes along with that. I don't know how they could put in an 8-hour day doing both. It not only would affect everyone in one particular office, it would also affect the outlying offices because we can hear through these walls what goes on in this building, in this room. So I'm pretty sure everyone out in all the other offices will be able to hear it too, even with the door shut, because I doubt it's soundproof. I don't understand how taxpayers could be responsible for paying a person to go to work to take care of their own child when there is daycare available. Thinking off the top of my head, there's probably less than 5 people in the whole entire building that this would even affect. So I don't see how it could benefit everyone, which is what a benefit should do, is affect the entire group of employees, not just a few. I don't know how liability for insurance would be affected by, like, if something happened and there was an accident. You would think there would be some kind of liability insurance that would have to take place special just to cover that. I just think that any change to benefit employees should be benefiting all of the employees, not just certain employees, because to me, it kind of seems like it's a little opposite of what the whole push for diversity has become. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to partake in public comment? Hearing none, I will close public comment and we will move to our HR updates. It's Jackie Pelkey.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to just do a few highlights from HR and what's happening. We have several vacancies, but I'm happy to report even several on here have been fulfilled. The Register of Deeds secretary position has been filled. The animal control shelter clerk has been filled. And then we currently are going through interviews for the equalization openings. So it's very exciting. We also have several new employees that have started. All of them are part-time with the exception of the sheriff's office, Rob McClatchy. He's the social work sheriff's deputy that started. Currently we have 2 work comp claims that are, one has been resolved. However, another one is currently being reviewed. So I'll get updates of that in the next couple of days or so. We currently have 2 employees on FMLA leave. And then Advantage Benefit Groups is currently working with Blue Care Network to correct a deductible carryover that we experienced during the transition from 44 North to Advantage Benefit Group. So that has also been taken care of. There's going to be several policies that are going to be coming forward within the next few weeks. One is going to be this afternoon, so we could discuss it, the infant in the workplace, but also there's going to be several more over the course of the next few meetings, depending on legal review and also department head review. And then upcoming projects, we're dealing with the budget season, so everyone's super involved in that. We have several meetings set up for June. We're ongoing with job descriptions. There's a MERS events for all employees on June 8th. And then currently something that I'm working on is to go to all of the different departments to just observe and see what different department heads do and how their different departments work. So I've already had the pleasure of going to the clerk's office and sitting in on court day. So that was awesome. That was super informative. I don't know how you guys do that every day. And then I also am going to the treasurer's office tomorrow. And then just some of the ones I already have lined up is EMS in June, dispatch in July, emergency management in August, equalization in September, and Register of Deeds in October. And so I might do a few more during the month as it presents itself, but currently that's the outlay. So it was really great. Does anyone have any questions?
It's bomb swatting.
Oh, it's what's been happening when someone calls to try to bring you to a different location to do something in a different location. Katie can probably explain it a little bit better than me.
Swatting is the new term for prank calls,
Yeah, it's
essentially.
like, what is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you may recall an incident that was somewhat recently in Frankfurt where somebody called dispatch regarding an incident that was supposedly going on in Frankfurt. And then when police and first responders responded, that was a complete lie. The idea is to trick law enforcement and first responders to a location so that the bad guy can go to a different location.
Thank you.
It's like the new term for prank calls.
Swatting. Okay.
Any other questions?
Great.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you.
so much, you guys.
Okay, that brings us to our goal setting strategic plan discussions.
So in your packet, you will see a 5-page document that's nice and colorful for your viewing pleasure. The Board of Commissioner Strategic Priorities, Goals and Actions. So I did take the things that we talked about a couple of months ago and we put on big pieces of paper, as well as all the things we've talked about over the last few meetings, as well as the things that were emailed to me. And then I put them into this document. I finessed and wordsmithed some things, and I think this is what you meant and all the things that were sent to me as far as goals and priorities that we want to focus on over the next couple of years for Benzie County. So you will notice high level themes, and then we go into the priorities themselves. And so in here, we've also identified actions and resources required to fulfill those actions. So I'm wanting to hear from you what you think of the document, what changes you want to see. Did I miss something? Or are you feeling pretty good about this document?
You hand it out, is that different than the one?
So the one that I handed out had a few tweaks to it, nothing real substantial. There was a couple of run-on sentences that I changed up. As well as there was a couple of statements where I had staff making the sole authority, but instead I've changed it so that staff made a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to make the final decision. So that was really the finessing I did. It was nothing too substantial. Most of it was just correction of like run-on sentences and clarification of thought. Also, at the very beginning, where we noted actions and investments over the next 2 to 4 years. And then I added a statement that's all decisions impact the long-term plans for Benzie. So just keeping in mind that while these are short-term things that we're working on, all these things are part of a bigger picture of improving Benzie County.
I was very impressed.
Thanks.
How you put it together well. On page 3, under resources required, what does political will mean as far as the goal? Provide exceptional services, enhance county services.
Well, we live in a world where politics is a thing. And in a lot of ways, to enhance services, to add services, that involves tax dollars and other increased revenue sources. And so in a lot of ways, the political will of getting behind that service or that additional benefit to the community involves a lot of political will of wanting to back something like that.
Could we change that to community support?
We could, yeah.
I had it as public consensus. Because
Whatever you guys would like.
because political will usually indicates the electors' will.
Right, but
Well, and in some instances, it will be electors. If the Board of Commissioners decided to go for a new millage, or if we move forward with resetting Headley, at that point, now it's the electorate's will.
I'm open to suggestions. It struck me.
If you don't
Like
like
it a question.
Sure.
I read political will.
Sure, we can finesse it, wordsmith it. I mean, if we don't like the word political, we can use anything else. We could say electoral will. Is that better?
I think it needs to say something about the public,
Voter
With it.
support.
community, public.
I'd stay away from using the word public consensus because that may not always be true.
Right.
Understood.
But what did you say?
Voter support. Community, I said community support.
Community
voter
will.
Support.
Yeah.
Community support, because community support doesn't say general consensus, but it says we've talked to people that support our decision.
Change made.
I do have a question regarding your very first topic, infrastructure and space. When I first read it, I thought infrastructure, I'm thinking roads, I'm thinking power utilities, water, sewer. That's what I was thinking when I saw infrastructure.
Well, infrastructure is buildings as well.
I concur, but somebody's going to read that and may think, oh, they're going to be prioritizing.
I had that same thing as I had it circled with a question mark and then define infrastructure.
But later on in that sentence, though, it says
I
for
mean,
the
yeah,
performance of,
The body of
County
that
services.
section defines it.
Mhm.
I just,
right, but I mean, even in that sentence alone, though, it says for the performance of county services.
Mhm.
including like roads.
They could.
Okay, it could.
I mean, at the end of the day, it could.
Like I said, yeah, it does define it when you read it, but just the title was, when I first read the title, I did
And I had public and fiscal health and accountability.
To add where?
Responsible on number 2, under strategic priorities.
What page you on, Karen?
Yeah.
Page 1 of 5, it's
What did you want?
on number 2, under strategic priorities, just a suggestion, a starting point for us. Public and fiscal health and accountability.
Well, it says fiscal health responsibility.
Right.
So this though is specifically on the funding for Benzie County. It's not related to public health. If you go and read the section within the actual document, we're talking strictly about county financials and supporting services with county funds. We're not ever even coming close to looking at public health in that section. I think those are two different things. Public health is very different than fiscal health.
And we'll address it elsewhere.
We could, yep.
Public health.
That's not in here, and yeah, and that's not in here at all because over the course of the last few months and emails, I don't know if I've heard public health as a,
One of the main.
yeah, so I didn't put it in here at all. Mm-mm.
Out of our purview.
Oh, I do think this document's awesome.
Thank
Very
you.
good job on it.
Is there any other tweaks, changes, additions to the document? I'm happy to make those. Otherwise, we would move it forward on May 23rd for adoption.
That it? Other questions?
Evan's very intent.
No, I think I told you that my computer died, so I have been trying to read it on my phone, so I'm just glad to have it in a full size thing, so.
Well, that has some corrections from the one that was in PDF anyway.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
just some tweaks.
Evan, if you ever need a spare laptop, just let me know.
I should have brought it just to have you. I don't even want to know that.
Supposedly one happened, and I'm gonna.
No, you want an iPad.
You want to sell it?
You want an iPad that's different. We have
Offered on the iPad. You didn't get back to me.
we have a spare laptop that's a floater for the building. So when somebody's
figure it out.
device dies, so if you needed to borrow that, you could.
I'll figure mine out.
All right, without hearing any other questions, I think the directive is to move forward with this.
Okay,
Done. No,
perfect.
Good.
How much should we pay you originally to have
Oh, can I have that?
in 2017, 18? I just want to stress the point that, you know, how we say we make investments in employees? These are the unforeseen investments, because I think we paid Tim, I could be wrong, but 20 grand or something like that.
I could buy some nice donkeys for that.
You just get an attaboy.
Okay,
You don't need any more donkeys.
two's not enough.
All right, that moves us on to our thoughts on bundling millage requests. That was our homework from the last meeting. We were all supposed to look at our menu of millages and bring back thoughts on what makes sense to consider bundling. Who did their homework?
I was saying, did anyone do their homework?
I got something. here.
I'm opening it up.
I get it.
Want me to start?
Sure,
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yep.
I'm kind of leaning towards combining all of public safety things. I have a couple of issues by bundling with TNT and animal control. In fact, I would throw animal control into that mix.
Mhm.
And the school resource officer. I don't want the jail in it. I think the jail needs to be separate. I feel this is the first time we've been able to fund the jail the appropriate level and not keep dipping into the general fund. And well, that's one of my thoughts. What else did I write down? I looked at the Maples thing and I'm thinking when the bonds are paid, part of that's gonna go by the wayside. I hate to have this many of them, but that's one I think eventually would be eliminated.
Mhm.
Road commission, we can't do anything with that. I did want to question why the Veterans Affairs went back from 0.04 to 1.
Are you looking,
That's,
Oh.
can be right.
yeah, that's, you must,
Absolutely.
you must have an outdated budget at a glance. We fixed that.
Oh, I think I have an outdated one as well then.
We have some fresh ones. We fixed that. That was just a typo.
Just a heads up, I had them yesterday send me over by email
Oh, good.
and I think the one they sent me was wrong even.
Maybe an
No,
old,
it's not.
I was saying
It's
that
not.
should be
It's-
right.
It's correct, yeah.
104.
Mhm.
I didn't think they changed it, but I thought.
You would have done it before now. Trust me.
Jerry, did I hear you say you would have, your bundling would include animal control into a public safety, into the public safety
I
stuff?
would like to see that go back into the sheriff's office.
Really? Okay.
How does the sheriff feel about that?
We talked
He's
about that
shaking his head no.
extensively for a long time. I had animal control under the general fund.
Okay. I'm writing notes, so.
Can I go next? son?
Sure. Please.
All right, I wish I had glasses with me, but
You want mine?
Right.
anybody got readers?
Yeah.
Everybody has readers.
Show up.
Thank you, dear.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm in favor of bundling. I don't think we need to bundle it into a special millage. I think we can bundle it right into the general fund if we get that increased. And what the ones that I was selecting, it was kind of twofold. One is we have like 12 or 13 of these out. And I was trying to get it down to a more manageable number. So I've identified 5 plus the one Gary talked about with the maples. That's going to go sunset anyway. And it would still leave us room if we asked for full reinstatement of the millage. It would still leave us a little room for additional operating funds for the county. I figured about $500,000 to $700,000. So the ones that I would consider is the advanced life support, animal control, conservation district, TNT, and school resource officer. And I want to be real clear. I'm not talking about doing this so that we can short the budget. I'm assuming for a moment that they'll still get full benefit, but that'll still leave us, I think, about $500,000 that we could use for general fund purposes and also, or things that we currently aren't doing, we could use that money for.
I just want to note the conservation district is its own entity and we by statute have to approve the ballot language for their millage.
Okay.
So they're not even a component unit of the county. So I would hesitate to put that one into the general fund.
Then if you had to strike it, but that was going to be 5 that we could roll back into the general fund. So if we can't do that, then there'd be 4 of them I'd recommend we do.
We don't have to ask for the 5.29. We can ask for less, right?
Right,
Yep.
right.
Go there.
Or not levy whole thing if the
I would
allocation
rather
board,
ask for less. than-
not up to us where it's set, it's the allocation board.
And before I jump there, because I'd be the first one to support that, but I'd want to see what their surplus is. I'd want to know what their plan is for just the same thing that I did with Matt this morning. You know, it's sometimes surpluses, there's a purpose for them, long term.
Can we get through all the commissioners first and then we'll take questions?
So
All right, Tim, did you have thoughts on the bundling?
I do.
Well, that's,
I kind of like I've said this before, the ability to choose which ones I might be passionate about, like animal control. We found out not so long ago, that our community is very passionate about their animal. And the animal shelter. I wouldn't have a heartburn merging the TNT and the school resource officer together, because they go hand in hand, I would think. I guess I'm okay with some of their suggestions. I would think animal control may want to be state separate. Only because, like I said, they screamed rather loud when that millage was paused for you.
Karen, wanna go?
Yeah, I just need some clarification, so I'll ask that from all of you. If it's already been voted on by the public on the ballot as it is, can we bundle it?
We wouldn't do it
Does-
immediately. These would be rolled in as they fell off, is my
Oh,
understanding.
as
come to
they fell
terms.
off.
Yeah, there's a few different ways you can look at
Okay.
it. So if the county has the community trust, we could do a Headley reset, put it back to 529 and commit to the county that we wouldn't levy those special millages because we'd be bundling it into the general fund. Or we could do it how Commissioner Nye just said, whereas you put them in as they fall off kind of thing. So there's a few different ways you can skin the cat per se.
Okay, yeah, that was my one, because I did my Google searches and stuff after I had the headway and tried to read through that and understand it. But that was just not clear for me. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be moved from what our, the majority of the population said they wanted the money to be used for.
And legally, you cannot do that. So when a special millage is voted upon by the voters, legally, you can only spend that money on what the ballot language allows. So you wouldn't be able to move the existing money. You'd have to use it up first.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's what I didn't know the time frame for the bundling. Thank you.
Did you have an opinion on which ones you wanted bundled?
Yeah, no, I would put the medical together. I wasn't sure. I think there's more that we need to investigate about the animal control because there is passion on that. No?
Oh, I'm sure there's passion, and I'm not saying that we not fund it. But by moving it into the general fund, it gives us flexibility, put money where it's most needed at any given time. Today, we don't have that flexibility.
But then what that does do is a community resident then maybe is scared you're going to close animal control per se, because now you can use that money on other things. So that's an argument you need to be prepared for.
Agreed. This is gonna be all about communication.
And that's one
Yeah.
of the issues that the school had. They passed a sinking fund, said they were gonna do away with it, didn't get the millage. Continued the sinking fund, then they got the millage, and they still continued sinking. The public is not gonna tolerate that kind of,
Well,
at least I wouldn't.
I'd like to stop bringing up that situation because the public entrusted Benzie County not to levy the second jail millage, and we didn't.
Hmm.
You have 2 current jail millages on the books, but you levied one and not the other. So I'd like to try to get over this whole issue that was with the school a few years ago, because you as Benzie County, you held that trust of the community. You did not levy that second jail millage like you promised, and they passed the higher
As
one.
we do what we're promised,
Yeah,
and I think we don't have an issue, but that was the case.
Yeah.
I didn't want the public to come back to.
right. So it's important to note that you didn't do that as Benzie County. You held your promise. You kept that one at 0.
Do you have other thoughts, Karen, or Bob, did you have any?
I don't have a problem at all with the sheriff's department and the jail. I think it's important to leave animal control out. The resource for me is, and I'll be careful how I say this, but Kyle Mauer has other skills other than animal control that can be used by the sheriff's office. With a law enforcement background, military background, he is certified to carry on duty. If there's ever a shortage during the day and he's available, he's always in line and aware of where there's activity at and if he's needed. So under the direction of the sheriff's department, that would be a benefit to have him. But I can also see that being put into not 40 hours a week of his time designated to animal control. So, it's a double-edged sword. But I don't have a problem at all with the sheriff's department and the jail, not one bit. And the other ones, I mean, some of the other ones have a place to be levied together. TNT, school resource, they both all fall underneath the sheriff's office anyways, under that direction. So we've been lucky on county villages on how the residents support everything. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. So I just want to be careful that we keep that in mind when we're going for some of these villages, because some of them pretty much are going to pass without any, people aren't even going to look twice. But you start adding a couple other ones in there, and now the counties think, the residents are thinking, are they trying to pull a quick one on me, or is there a backdoor effect here? And I mean, that's the only thing that I would look at, is to be careful how we place what we place. Because I think it gives the impression that we're trying to do something under the table.
I do want to make the observation, Bob, that, there's two separate subjects out here. We're talking about where does it get managed from and where does it get funded from? Where it gets funded from doesn't dictate where it's managed. So if you wanted to leave animal control on its own, just because it's being paid out of the general fund, doesn't mean it has to report to the sheriff's office. They can be on their own still, and I understand concern, and that's true with any of these. So they don't have to be like services, because again, we're talking about fully funding them. We're talking about managing them probably the way they still are. All we're talking about, for me, at the end of the day, it's about having some influence over where the money is needed at any given time. And the community doesn't know that. They don't know what the shortfalls are. They don't know that some of these funds, these agencies are well funded, while the general fund of the county, at least at one point, was a real concern.
Sure.
And that's my whole objective behind this. That, and I've been told over the last several years, why can't you bundle some of those special millages? That might just be my district.
The only time it's inconvenient is people go to the polling booth, as far as I'm concerned, because every day in society, you're gonna pay your taxes, and you don't really look at it and say, well, I know this much is going here and this much is, they forget about it after they leave the polls.
Agreed.
Evan?
I think TNT, school resource and jail, but then to think a little further on it, do you make it a public safety thing and add EMS and animal control and make it one big group? I don't know that, but I like for sure TNT, school resource and jail. And then in reference to animal control, is that something, somebody mentioned the sheriff, is that something the sheriff's department would want to even take on as becoming, under the sheriff's direction? That would be a different topic there, but I just think the sheriff's department one certainly makes sense. And then would you want to broaden it for EMS and animal control as a total public safety?
I haven't heard it yet, but I was always under the assumption that when the jail millage passed, it never was supposed to stand alone, that the jail was supposed to be run by the general fund. So in my bundling, I put the jail back in the general fund. I put animal control back in the general fund. I even considered Veterans Affairs in the general fund with a public safety for TNT and school resource, maybe advanced life. I was always, I get the animal control talk about how much the community loves it. That's fantastic. I feel the same way. But we also have situations, I've heard it said before that the treasurer's department, the clerk's department, and record of deeds isn't sexy. It's hard to go out to the voters and say, look, we got to sustain these. It's hard to be passionate about the treasurer. Sorry, Shelley.
She takes offense.
Well, we give you money.
I think if we put all these services, and these are all
Take a picture
services
of it.
that the county provides into the one fund. I mean, the idea is that when animal control, it needs to be funded properly to the level it needs to be to take care of the animals and the employees. And but there are projects that come and go. And so every year they don't need the same level of funding. And when it's millage based, we tie up money in that area that could be shifted to other areas. And I just, in my time on this board, I've seen a very fiscally responsible crew and if you look at the audit, it speaks to that we're making good decisions and we've earned the community's trust. And I think that, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was the jail was supposed to go back under the general fund after the new building was, is that correct? Am I understanding that wrong?
So that's been talked about for years because of the mandated service aspect of it. And
Okay.
so from my understanding, his historically throughout time, at random times, the talk was to put mandated services back into the general fund and maybe the non-mandated service came out, is my understanding of random conversations throughout history. And so the jail, elements of the jail are technically mandated services. And so the talk was to put those back into the general fund because it's mandated
Well, we are only mandated to have a holding cell
in transport.
and transport, but we have a vibrant jail
Hmm.
right now, and it's being used for the purposes it was intended. I mean, it is serving its the purpose it was designed for.
Hmm.
So I don't know, those are.
But I'm sure other folks who have been with the county much longer than me can talk about those historical conversations.
Katie, is there a maximum amount that can be charged as a millage for operating funds?
Are you talking about our general operating?
Yeah, because I thought I read somewhere it couldn't exceed like 5.2 or 5.4.
So our original was 5.29 and that was established by the tax, the tax allocation piece of it.
Okay,
And so we're gonna get to that later is when it comes to resetting Headley or overriding Headley, two different boards come into play. And it really boils down to, do you want to go back to 529 or do you want to look at a new allocation of total mills by county? And that's when you tie in the schools and the townships and other things.
okay.
But our maximum, if we were to reset, the easier process is 5.29.
And
But
that's,
that's not what has to be levied.
Correct.
but that's what my recommendation based on was
Yeah,
that.
up to. Hmm.
Two things about millages. One, ALS is an enterprise fund.
Right.
You probably can't bundle that with anything. It is a standalone.
Hmm.
Two, jail is a mandated service. And by putting it in the general fund, you don't have to worry about it not being funded. Because if it didn't ever get funded by a special millage, general fund will fund it.
Period.
So it's that, to me, that is reckless to keep it outside of the general fund.
If I may, I'll go back to veteran services. That's a levied millage. It's not a millage that the voters vote on. So,
The statute allows for up to 0.1 mil
correct.
for veteran services, and you can levy that without the vote of the people.
And it has been, since I've been here, as high as 0.08, and we nixed that and have been at 0.04 for,
It was as high as 0.08.
Hmm.
that was a year after I came. Because it was kind of a mess.
So there was amazing support, the last scale millage. And, but what I hear you saying is this is an insurance policy for the longevity of the jail, roll it into the general fund because there wouldn't be any question.
Well, if
down
you
the
keep
road
subjecting
what-
it to a
right,
vote and a
to
vote and a
right.
vote, at some point, maybe somebody
could say
gets
no.
a craw in their cap and next thing you know, we've got some debate about whether it's a viability option.
And if we were to go to that route, we could go beyond 5.29.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it really began to limit what else we could bundle. That takes up what?
Well, so the conversation that Katie alludes to is at one point we had the conversation about if you put the jail back in the mandated services realm, you can take the road patrol out and
Hmm.
put it in law enforcement
Hmm.
and bundle that with the other law enforcement things like SRO and TNT.
You're
Should be bundled together.
Right, because in the general fund, road patrol is not a mandated service,
Correct.
but jail is. So the right thing to do is put the mandated things in the mandated space and the elective things out for election.
Do you have an opinion on animal control?
Not mandated.
I do not. The county treasurer by statute is required to collect dog licenses. I am in the general fund.
There's a few, you're saying,
But we share those dollars.
We're having conversation over here. What do we have? Here,
well, if we roll into jail, that
Mhm.
pretty much wipes out. Pushes it up to the 1.29. If you go for a public safety millage. Entire sheriff's department, road patrol and everything,
You can't do that. The sheriff's department is a mandated service.
the sheriff's.
But road
department-
patrol-
Road patrol is
Right.
not. So I'm just saying. Where are we gaining anything and would that fly?
you're eliminating the uncertainty that
Mhm.
the jail is subject to the voter's discretion at any given duration. I mean, we're good for until the millage is up, but then the voters determine whether it's funded up the bill.
I'm just going by past practice in this county. Once it's passed, it'll be renewed. Saying always has been that.
Hmm.
I would think that would continue. Hadn't have got what we got last time. Still be dipping into the general fund every year. And we can
Because it's a mandated service
Yeah,
for the
but-
general fund.
Well,
can
only portions of it
reduce
is
the
though.
thing down to
Yes.
where the bare minimum, and that'll cause a rift like. See that coming, so
Anyway, I
there
just
are
wanted to
other
clarify
options
those.
if we don't have the money in the general fund. That one's a tough one.
That's why we're having this conversation.
By the way, you were the one that said that funding. Yeah. Always. He's an easy sell.
Not always an easy sell. Yeah, nobody wants to
Right.
pay for things that aren't fun,
No,
but you can't live without us.
Right.
You just can't live with us either.
Interesting.
Where are we going with this?
so
The sheriff has.
Oh.
Were you gonna come up here and talk?
I have a couple comments if you'll allow me,
Absolutely.
might be a little helpful.
Means I'm been around forever seemingly. So the history,
More than
we need to
some of us.
remember history. Right now, I believe the community trusts all of you,
Mhm.
myself, most of the elected people. Okay? We're not gonna be here forever. And the history of the millages, in my eyes, has been well, we don't trust the commission or the county to allocate funds for what we feel is important, so we're gonna go out and get a millage for every little thing. And quite honestly, that's the reason that we have the services that we have today. And I'm not saying that you would cut them all. I'm just saying the funding is there because people want it. And they vote for it and they support it. And then we do our thing. Yes, it has to be used for that. And the caution that I would put towards bundling and saying, well, we'll bundle and, we're gonna allocate funds a little bit differently. That's not what people want. I'm just being the devil's advocate here for a moment. I don't believe that's what the average citizen, the general pop wants. They want to pass a certain millage and make sure that that is, but the funds are being used for that and that only. That's just my take on it. 34 years of working up the hill. I've seen a lot of different things and truly, although the jail is a mandated fund, service, the question's always been to what extent? We did try several years ago to pass a law enforcement millage and then put the jail back into, and the voters are like, for whatever reason, no, that went down. So we're back to where we started.
Could that have had anything to do with when the millage was up and it was still being assessed? For a couple of years after the millage was already paid or that had already ran out?
I don't think that.
Remember Ted first got the sheriff.
That's what Mr. Mead, I believe, was the treasurer.
And this goes.
Well, that was way back.
I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Shelley?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Mike Jones' famous quote, just get real, people. We don't have the money to pay you.
Mhm.
Literally, that was said during the commission meeting.
So the sheriff said that people want an à la carte menu And that's how we have functioned. The reason we function that way is because we maxed our operating millage. And if you want us to provide services, we have to go out for special millages because we couldn't have put it in the general fund if we tried until we did a reset. So we've had to have that à la carte menu all these years. So that being said, whether or not they wanted it that way, or they like it that way, or they don't like it that way, that was the only way we could offer it. So there's that. Now, let's talk about the frustration that the voters had in the early 2000s. Yeah, early 2000s, late 1999, something-ish. Linda Wilson was treasurer, and she had been to a training where they had a conversation about millage for building versus millage for operating, and realized that our jail millage had both components in one millage. And that perhaps we were supposed to be rolling back the operating millage all these years while the debt millage was being paid. And so when she determined that, she brought it to the board. And then we right-sized the rollback of the operating portion. And then that caused voter turmoil regarding the jail. So I think we're getting past that because they clearly voted for the jail this time. So I think we're getting past that. I don't believe that the money was misappropriated. It was always in the jail, and it was for both the funding of the building and for the operations, which is what it was intended for. But I think the original millage proposal should have been two separate millages. One for the debt, one for the operating. And so by the time we figured this out, the debt was almost over. We had paid it off and then right-sized the millage for future. So that's how that happened. It's tomato, whether you want the jail out and the road patrol in, or the jail in and the road patrol out. A minimal level of sheriff requirement, a minimum level of jail requirement is mandated, and the rest is to our discretion.
Maybe
That's all I know.
maybe the very first question is why do we want to do this at all?
I was gonna ask that very question. We should make
Why do
sure.
we want to bundle it all, or
No,
why
no,
are we
no.
looking to override Headley?
Exactly. Why are we over? And
Well, can I take a stab?
I have an answer. So go ahead. I'd love to know how you see it.
Well, how I see it is, we started at 5.29 in 1982.
Yes.
And we are rolled back to 3.34 right now. And because inflation is so high, we aren't going to roll back again this year or maybe next year. So we are trying to be proactive for the continuation of rollback that our millage verbiage requires. One of 11 counties, or it's less than that now.
Not a ton.
Yeah, in that, so we are trying to be proactive for the rollback of our general fund millage that is inevitably going to happen when inflation declines. And it will continue to happen. And then I believe the argument to that, well, property values, the property value is going up and people are building and things like that. We've seen what happened. We don't reset. There are other communities who reset every 5 years. Their voters don't bulk at it. They want the services that are provided. We don't have the mechanism in place by which to do that. And so even though we are in a good fiscal position right now, we are trying to take a shot at not being in a very bad. That would be my explanation. Would you like to add to that?
Actually, we're right there in the same page, and where I'm going with this, because we have money to operate the business. What we learned in the last 18 months is that it's been pretty exciting, I think, to be able to do things in the community that we've never been able to do before because we didn't have the funds. And I think those things were very constructive. So maybe if our starting point is that really what we're looking for is additional income revenue for the community to do some things that are more futuristic. Maybe we just focus on that. And if I trusted everything I'm hearing about the bundling, maybe now is not a good time to do bundling. Okay, because the real objective is getting the community to have faith to give us more money. And if we complicate it, then that reduces the likelihood that we're going to get that support.
I'm not so sure that right now we need more money
Thank you.
because we are actually adding to our contingency fund. What we're looking to do is make sure we're not handcuffed in the future.
Right.
So we want the ability to levy a full amount if need be, but we want to get it so we're not handcuffed. Makes it so we can. We're gonna go, I'm seeing this going to the community saying we need to get this Headley thing fixed. You know, we're only gonna levy what we need to operate and maintain and work on these projects. Down the road, if everything's going smoothly, maybe then we can move some of these millages into and then increase the general fund millage by a little bit to compensate for the ones that we take off the board.
Yeah.
It's a phase
Agree with you.
thing.
Yeah, and it's not just, for me, it's twofold. It's not just the services we provide as a county to the public, the people who visit here. It's also how we treat our employees. We have to have the bandwidth, be able to be good employers. And those are the two sides.
From a taxpayer's perspective, we've been hearing in the last several years, why are there so many things listed on our tax bill? That doesn't happen at my home or my other property or whatever. And then we try to explain to them without confusing the daylights out of them. But we've heard more and more of that. And previous years, I hadn't heard much at all of any of that. But we've heard a lot of that in the last 3 to 5 years.
We're having a lot more people with multiple properties investing here, is what I'm hearing.
Right, or there's people that are new homeowners here that they're like, this isn't what my old house looked like, but why do we have so many?
They saw previously their tax statement showed 4 special millages and now we've got 12 or whatever that number is.
And we're almost maxing out the form BSNA provided.
Some counties must be maxing out. So, I mean, we have a lot of millages for Benzie County, but in the grand scheme of it, I mean, other counties have more millages than us. They just do. Bay County has 11, for instance.
That's more than us.
Well, some of them have more than us, 12, 13. So there's a report I can send you that details every millage for every county if you'd like. So,
Sounds like fun reading.
yeah, it's fun. So I guess we need to get to a point where, so everything I'm learning about Headley has me understanding that I think all of you are a bit confused about Headley and resetting versus overriding and a tax allocation board versus a tax advisory committee. There's all these different things. So if it is the county's intent to reset the millage back to 5.29, that process is way less cumbersome than if the board wants to reallocate funding and increase it. So 529 is what it was set in 1982. However, we could have set it at 6.77 back then, and we have that opportunity to be higher. The state tells you how much you can allocate among the taxing entities, but there's a minimum for all of those. 5.29 would be considered a reset of Headley. If we wanted to override Headley, then we could reallocate what is going to the county. If you just want to reset Headley back to the 5.29 and potentially bundle some of these things into there, that process is prompted by a resolution adopted by this board, which then prompts the appointment of a committee of 6 people, all that are statutorily outlined other than one. And that committee has 10 days to tell you what to put it at, whether it's 5.29, 5.0, what have you. And then this committee adopts a resolution and it's on the ballot. That's done. If this committee wants to look at raising it from 5.29 to like 6.77 and reallocate the amounts going to the taxing entities, that's what prompts the tax allocation board, which is statutorily in place by April 1st. And the membership is much larger and there's public hearings and all those things. So if the intent of this board is to look at just resetting back to 5.29, that's a much quicker process than reallocating.
Anybody in favor of going higher than 5.29?
That was never my thought.
Okay,
I think it was, I
So-
just want to make sure that we're
It
not,
was never discussed.
okay.
we remove the indefinite language.
And that can be done as part of the reset.
Okay, so that can be removed and
Then
thereby
it would have to be
creating
voted
a
on.
renewal.
Whatever.
Yes.
frequency we-
So you could, yes, you could pick the timeline up
I
to
like
so many
that.
years.
Right now.
Pretty much every county except a couple of us revote every few years.
Reallocate? Does that benefit the municipalities within the county?
Right, what about the
Villages and
township?
townships?
Resetting benefits everybody because you're putting it back to where everybody started in 1982. Reallocating is changing the percentages that go to everybody.
Start what you
That's the
said.
difference. So if we're reallocating, we would get different than what we started with. So would the township, so would the intermediate school district. Resetting is just putting everybody back to their starting point in 1982.
Having been here for the conversation, I believe our intent has always been to reset.
That was my understanding, but when I asked for legal opinions and their resends from your prior administrator and everything I read through the minutes shows that it was very confusing, I got a little scared for all of you.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because we were using all of those
Term.
terms interchangeably.
And they're definitely not interchangeable.
Because I've said more than once, Headley override, Headley,
No,
Yes.
Headley reset, and I thought it was all one of the same.
no. Reset is different than override. Allocation board is different than the advisory committee.
I'm telling you that whatever strategy we come up with, 5.29
Is the
is
max.
plenty to think about the future and operate the community too,
Okay,
As again.
so if
as of now, right?
So if the 5.29, if that's what the board's intent was, is to just reset it. Doesn't mean you have to levy it. But to reset it, this board would adopt a resolution of their intent to reset the millage, the operational millage. That triggers the formation of a board, which includes the county treasurer, the probate judge, one township supervisor, the intermediate school district superintendent, the finance chair of the finance committee of this board, which really doesn't exist. And then there's one other person that triggers the appointment of that board, and that board has 10 days to make a decision to come back to you. They make their recommendation to you. If you accept that, you adopt a resolution, which then places it on the next election. And then from there, it's educating the public on the need. I recommend waiting because if we do it in 2023, you're paying for that election and that is not financially
If
smart.
we reset Hadley, how does that benefit the townships and the villages?
Because they've all rolled back since 1982 as well.
But-
So it resets all of them back to where they started.
Okay. Okay.
So we started at 5.29, we're down to 3.443. This would put us back to 5.29. And so,
Yeah, as we continue this conversation, I want to get some actual tax bills, see what that's going to do to a resident as far as, for 100,000. I mean, because this is going to impact them in their townships
yes,
and it's going to be, depending on what's levied.
Right.
Of course, a significant increase.
yes. So from a county standpoint, what I'm hearing from all of you is you want to find a way to essentially make folks break even. You want to find ways to potentially bundle and remove smaller millages so that the community is not seeing a huge increase. We obviously can't speak for the townships and what they're going to do with their villages.
You want to read some of the old tax allocation minutes?
No,
Help yourself.
I read some of those. I read your minutes. Sherry Taylor and I were reading minutes yesterday, and it was clear to me that the path you were being led down combined the two feats in one, and they're very separate trails.
You have some townships that are financially well off.
Right.
But-
And they don't want to do anything. And then you have some that are hurting,
Mhm,
you have some that actually lower their levy.
right,
So you got quite the gamut to go.
right.
My
So-
township is struggling. They would appreciate
Whose fault's that?
a reset.
And I have two townships that do quite well and one that struggles.
So what I'm gathering from all of you is that it kind of sounds like a public safety millage seems to be a general consensus, which would include throwing in the jail and maybe ACO, and then keeping some of the other ones as they are. So if that's kind of a general consensus, I can present ideas based on this year's taxable value. So you can see what that looks like, if that's what the board would like to do. And then from there, we can decide how we want to move forward. Either way, I don't think we should do anything until 2024 because I don't want to pay for an election. Because how better does it say to the community that we want your money so we can spend it $100,000 on an election?
Give us an opportunity to continue this conversation and get input from the community and, you know, hopefully we can get a gauge, get our thumb on the pulse of the community and see if we're headed in the right directions. You know, the resetting mechanism to me is crucial. I mean, once the inflation rate drives back down, we are going to continue to roll back.
Correct.
How far can we do that?
Correct.
Still provide services.
Well, when you get to the negative numbers, that's gonna be kind of hard.
So would you like me to provide hypothetical numbers? Or if we did a
I mean,
public
I think
safety
the-
millage and bundled and reset the general, and would you like some hypothetical numbers to boil over? Do we want to let this sit for a while? What would you like to do?
Well, no, we're talking about not acting on it for a year and a half, which I understand the cost of special elections, but good God, we've been talking about this since 2017. And I have to tell you, if I had to make a decision today, based on what I heard today, I'm going to do a reversal in what my thinking is. Leave the special millages there, look for an increase in our operating millage. And because it's much easier to communicate that one single task rather than bundling. And then maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, we start looking at bundling.
That's right, but the other thing that we need to get into this. You add in what the townships are gonna do, and TVA and all this, or whatever it is now.
North End.
What is the main total impact to the taxpayer? And not just our end of it, the whole thing, so I would like to see that if we can, but I think we need to continue talking, because
Well, we can do hypothetical numbers based on if everybody reset and everybody levied the full amount. We can show that difference, but it would be based, obviously, it's a snapshot. It's this year's taxable value and, you know, it's just an estimate, but
it would give you an idea.
it would give you an idea of what you're talking about.
And it
Yes.
would give us a sense of moving forward with it too. Instead of, what did you say, 17? You've been discussing this or going back and forth. So because it does have to be addressed and the reset does seem like a good starting point for that.
And
I like the hypothetical too, Katie.
I can do that.
if we reset it at 5.29, which we don't need to if we're leaving the special millages alone, that'd be over $2 million. So we clearly don't need to assess that much.
Correct.
So when you talk about running numbers, you're also talking about the impact from the townships too. Is that it?
Yeah, I can run a total. So I have where everybody started. And I can get taxable value from equalization downstairs for the individuals. I have the total. I can get the numbers and do the calculations is what I'm saying.
I just want to make sure that we remove some of the handcuffs for the townships and
Right.
villages, because I mean, they can only go up to a certain amount right now. They're stuck.
Mhm.
Right?
And the mechanism in place to reset, I mean, okay, if that's approved, with, the trust of the voters there and they do that and it's not levied, how far is that gonna go? To gain trust with the community? Say, look, you allowed this mechanism to be put back in place and we did the right,
Mhm.
and we didn't levy the maximum and
Keep selling the jail thing where we didn't levy it, and we'll keep selling that.
Yeah, don't talk about the
So,
school situation.
Sheriff, can I invite you back up? Is there anything that makes sense to you to bundle in a public safety millage has always made sense to me. Anybody else? Is there anything that
But you be
you
careful
would
with
like
public
to
safety.
see?
Yeah, you have to be careful with public safety because
It's pretty broad when you say that.
That include
I just
fire.
wonder if
EMS.
like you said, you have extensive time here, and is there anything that you see on this millage list that it would make sense to you to have together instead of separate millages?
At the end of the day, it comes back to what is the public trust in us?
Mhm.
making decisions. You know, whether it be the rollback,
Recess.
with the promise that these special millage are gonna go away. And once that happens, if the special millages that they vote for every 4 years or whatever go away, we have to reassure them that those services are still gonna be there. That's not why we did this, to get backdoor and get rid of those and make, you know, it's so that's not really what you asked me, but I wanted to throw that out there. I think millages that are attached to sheriff's office, for example, might make sense to keep together. EMS is some,
SRO.
absolutely,
Okay.
very instrumental at sheriff's level. Yes. I mean, look what happened.
I'm asking, what makes sense to you?
Look at what happened. I'm not pointing fingers or saying anything bad, but when we split with Frankfurt, the result wasn't what we felt the general poppy wanted. So we revisited that and changed it. Now I think it's as good as it could ever be. So, but again, keeping it within the umbrella of the agency, whether it's fire, EMS, police, animal control, I don't know, it's kind of a thing of its own. Although I have seen it under the sheriff's office, I have seen the good, I've seen the bad and the ugly. But
Let me ask this. I mean, right now Kyle has a military background. He is, MCOL certified, a lot of really good things that could serve the sheriff's department, but another animal control director.
Cole certified?
I thought he was MCOL certified.
no, he's not.
Terrible.
We have had MCOL certified folks in there though.
Okay. So the next animal director though, might not have those skill sets. Would you still want that person under the sheriff's department? I mean, it seems like we're being very, employee specific
Right.
about the desire to put,
And
because
we
of
should.
Kyle and his.
Just like I said, none of us are gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
That's true as well. I mean, I think that animal control in and of itself could be valued under the sheriff's office only because history shows that it's not just about dog licensing. It's not just about adopting the pets and having a shelter. Crimes are connected. Animal abuse, cruelty, domestic violence, homicide, they're all connected. So when we're sending an animal control officer to a call, a dog running at large, he could potentially be going to a place where there's a lot more going on or has gone on, or maybe nobody knows what's going on.
Sure.
But history has shown historically, nationwide, there's statistics. But in our own county, there are many statistics that tell us the homicides that we've had in the last 3 years, our animal control guys have been to all those places
Mhm.
before. So we're sending folks out there. Am I telling you I want to take that over? Not really.
Yeah, you kind of
But
are.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
I want that person, whoever it is, I want to set them up to be safe. That's the bottom line. So
Kyle is MCOL's qualified.
Thank you. I thought I knew that.
Kind of sound like you wanted it back.
don't read into it.
Who wants to save sending an officer with?
I think all of that is fine and good, but I'm gonna go back to what I said several moments ago.
You're welcome.
What is it that we're really trying to accomplish? And let's focus on that goal, because this is muddying up this whole ask.
Agreed.
So I will bring forward hypothetical numbers for the county and for the townships, everybody as a whole, to see what it would look like if everything was reset, everybody levied at the top dollar, versus what's being done now. I will present you with those numbers, and then we can talk about the game plan going forward. If you want to wait, if you don't want to wait, that's what we'll do.
We have a idea what an election's gonna cost after the new rules.
We'll know maybe in November. Yeah, a lot of money,
Everybody?
Hmm.
Yes,
100 grand or so.
okay, excellent. Let's move on. So our next discussion is regarding infant in the workplace program.
In your packet is a policy that is draft form regarding infant in the workplace. This is a program that many entities are rolling out around Michigan, around the country. Not just like this, some are different. This is just a stab at what we thought may be appropriate to bring forward. What this policy does is it would allow an employee, and we have two potential employees that would benefit immediately from it. What this would do is allow that person to bring that child to work at 6 weeks old up to 6 months old or mobile. The policy is very strict in a sense that if the child fusses, they have to go home. The elected official or department head does have to approve it and sign off on it. There has to be other folks, 1 or 2 folks in the building who assist with that child. So if you have a meeting or something like that, you're not allowed to leave campus without the child. There's a lot of different things that are in place to protect the program. We know, and we heard it again this morning, that there is a child care crisis everywhere, specifically in our region, Benzie County alone. There is 2.5 children for every single spot of childcare. We heard on the ARPA survey that childcare is one of the top things that the community is very focused on, and we haven't really supported that yet. This is kind of a spin in supporting that. If we allow, even 2 infants to come here to free up a spot in the community for a little while, you've affected childcare now in the community. I guess that's that.
So basically, we're looking for a total of 4.5 months. Between 6 months or 6 weeks and 6 months.
Yeah, it's not a ton of time, and 6 months or until mobile.
And how long does generally a parent get time off after they have a birth for maternity leave?
So it depends. Natural birth is a minimum of 6 weeks. C-section is typically a minimum of 12 weeks. FMLA allows them to take 12 or 8 and then 12.
I think we have someone.
Yeah, well, the FMLA leave allows employees to take up to 3 months leave. And so they are not always paid for that whole duration of time.
Mhm.
So we also have short-term disability that's available, but that only covers employees for either the 6 to 8 week period that they're deemed sick by a doctor. So essentially, employees are going a month unpaid. This could alleviate that for employees. So I think it's something to consider. So it could be as late as 3 months when the child comes into the workplace. It could be as early as 6 weeks, but 6 months is the maximum.
And some of these employees work from home. Some of the.
If their department head lets them.
Everything to me is dependent on the department head and the elected official that's in charge.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely. So if it's something that could be worked out at home. Temporarily, maybe come in once in a while.
And that's an
I don't
option
plan
too.
on having any more kids, so I'm not.
You're not?
Uh,
Well, that's an option too. And we
just
are.
wondering.
We are making a shift so that everyone has laptops at their desks now, so that is an option. What if we have another pandemic, and we need to keep people at work? So that could be an option too, where that person's only here 1 to 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and then they're home for a couple days a week working. That could be an option too.
And that opportunity is provided in this policy where it's something that's worked out between either the department head, elected official, HR, and the county administrator, along with the employees. So it could be something as little as 1 day a week they're coming in when they have to run payroll, or they have to do something like that where you can't really do that from home. So it's all part of the planning process.
Right.
Seems like common sense. I just granddaughter this last weekend, an hour and a half as long as I can go. So just
So the obvious the obvious person in our office that you're all aware, but you know, we have other employees who are expecting, and their elected official person has expressed the interest in allowing it in their office as well. So I don't want this whole rumor around the building that we're doing this just for Rose. This is an all-encompassing policy for anyone who would be in that potential parent guardianship situation. And I can tell you there's elected officials on this campus who are looking forward to a policy like this if it's adopted.
I know it's not just for Rose, because you've expressed this a year or so ago.
Yeah.
For this.
I'm not having any more kids either. 3 is more than I need.
You know, I think the best time to talk about policies is when it affects employees directly and to try to come up with solutions on how to make it work and also benefit employees in general. So I mean, Rose might have sparked the issue, but I think it's something that's much bigger picture. Because like we've been saying, we're not all going to be here forever. So this is a policy that could be here past all of us.
And this is very new, and I think touchy for Benzie County, but in the region, we're behind in this situation. Many places are already allowing a program like this or similar to this or spun a little different ways. We're behind in this situation when it comes to the region.
And it's a pilot.
Yep.
It's
If it don't work, it goes away.
So I'm under the,
Go ahead.
anytime that we can increase employee satisfaction to keep the employees happy, it's a bonus. We just got to be careful that, you know, like if being a pilot, you know, you have a child in here, it's not as disturbing everybody else that's working around it kind of.
Well, and the policy indicates you have to leave. So if you read the policy,
Yeah,
if the
but you
child
can't-
fusses for more than a few minutes, you need to take them to a separate room. If you can't settle them within a certain amount of time, you have to go home for the day.
Well,
Soundproof room.
you read that, but
Had it.
just like you take a puppy into a school, what happens?
I mean, I brought my dog here once.
Right? Everybody just, you bring a child into an office, what's gonna happen?
I can tell you that wears off.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna need to see, you're saying this is happening in the region,
City of
but-
Traverse City,
I think
Haggerty.
you put a lot of employees in a precarious position, because who wants to be the person who says, I don't want the baby here at work.
Mhm.
I'm coming to work. This is my job. You don't want to be, we're putting a whole bunch of people in a position to not be able to voice an unpopular sentiment,
Mhm.
because you're never going to be the good guy who says, why is there a baby here? I'm at work. Why is there crying? Why does it smell like dirty diapers? And why does it, you know, why, who wants to be that person? And so it's not a popular position. There isn't a popular position other than to say, yeah, we should be on board with this. I mean, I just don't think I think it would be hard to get a real pulse of how broadly this is accepted. And I do think Karen makes a good point about this is offering a benefit to a very small portion of employees that will impact a larger group of employees. I like the idea that you're trying to think out of the box. I like the idea that we're trying to take care of our employees, that we're trying to make life easier, but there's a bigger picture that needs to be thought about. And I want to really discuss this before we make any decisions.
Well, I would just say, I understand that you think it's a limited amount, but if the policy is in place for long-term, it affects way more people than a few. And I will say that you limited a benefit, the board, a benefit to all new employees by closing the DB plan, because I can tell you everyone else has a way better retirement than I do. So think about it that way. Policies change, benefits change, time change. I mean,
There's always going to be some level of discrimination
correct.
on policies and benefits. It could be in your pension plan, it could be in your insurance plan.
Exactly.
I suggest that we could probably sit down and identify several
Mhm.
that not everybody's going to get the benefit from.
Mhm.
I'm not, and by the way, I'm not saying that I support this, but it's been commented that you know, you got to have a great workplace for people. And just because you're the public sector doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to be competitive also.
Mhm.
I don't know if this is the answer, but childcare is a problem. And from a personal value perspective, I'd like to see families spend more time together because I think there's a benefit to that, but maybe this isn't it either. So
Mhm.
I don't know how much influence you give a 6-week-old.
I know that I had two of our children, my wife from two different companies was allowed to take two of them to work for a while, and it was super helpful for us. I mean, that was 20-some years ago, but
I had the benefit
Mm.
with David to work from home, work flex schedule and take him to work. There's been multiple infant graduates from the city. Haggerty does a similar program and people rave about it.
Well, they actually have a different kind of, they have a program where they're 12 weeks paid, their entire
Yep.
salary is paid for that 12 weeks, and then they have a gradual roll back in where they start off with 1 week, then 2 week,
Days.
1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, a gradual increase.
Yeah.
And they keep their full salary the whole time.
Yeah,
So
similar
the reason why
programs.
we're bringing this policy is it allows essentially no or low costs to the county in comparison to paying someone's full
Mhm.
salary for a duration.
Is it hard to find childcare for infants that age anyway?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So the state has very strict number ratios in place, and that's based on the age of the child as well. And so what you're finding now is a lot of childcare entities won't even accept babies because the ratio is so low and the amount of extra work it takes for a baby. So babies are actually hardest to find childcare for because a lot of places, they don't want them till they're 1 or 18 months or older.
Wireless oversight
Mhm.
supervision.
Yeah.
So have you acknowledged the loss of productivity?
Yep.
Because
Mhm.
there is gonna be loss of productivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was getting at the new baby coming in the office, everyone's
Yeah.
going. Then you have the whole office now.
So we have salaried people who are making their salary, but now they're working less.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you reconcile that?
They're expected to work their 40 hours a week. I mean, and that's in the policy as well.
Well, and the reason why we brought this to the committee of the whole is we're happy to take suggestions. We're
Yep.
happy to, this can be considered a working document. So we didn't want to bring it right to the board for approval. We wanted to be able to have the opportunity to talk about it, make changes. Like, this is very fluid right now. This is just, I mean, we would love your input on
Yeah.
what you think needs to be addressed. What do you think what we might have missed? Like, we're happy to be
So
more
what are you
fluid.
gonna say to, here's be the hypothetical. So you have a person who is not able because of their job description to bring their child to work. Well, you have just saved one of your employees a whole bunch of money by allowing them not to have to utilize daycare. Do you now owe another employee that benefit that you paid essentially to this? How do you provide something to one employee? I mean, isn't there a cash value to that benefit that the other employee should get if they can't utilize that benefit?
I guess I don't see it that way. I mean, people who go,
Because if I have done my research, I have
Oh,
looked this
good.
up and it said, these companies that are offering this have compensation that they offer to people who can't utilize it because it is,
there you go.
right?
well,
And
then I
so
guess-
that creates a whole,
Is that something that the board would be open to? I mean, it wouldn't be something that necessarily we can make a unilateral decision. I'd be happy to put something in there.
well,
like
no, I'm
that,
saying
but
it's
yeah.
more of a deterrent
Yeah.
than a program we would want to put into place. It creates another liability
Mhm.
for the county. I mean, and then you look at tax-paying residents who are, well, I'm a teacher and I go to work. I can't take my baby to work, but I pay taxes and there's babies going to work up at. So I don't know. I would need more conversation on this.
But then a teacher, I think, gets free daycare. So
Well,
they
a
get
lot of
summers
them.
off.
And Chair, if I may, I think we talked about this before with childcare, possibly having, and just tossing out ideas right now, okay? Having like Betsy Hosick is available again, that building. So that fell through and somebody wanted to be have a childcare there or a combination, but let's just keep it as childcare. And maybe rolling that in as a county benefit, that's where our county children or babies go, but with extra, like you would, people from the whole county can use the facility too as a county benefit and kind of be a benefit to county employees. Are you following me on this?
Except for the ones that don't have kids.
Well, yeah, but that's, I mean,
But that costs money. This won't cost any money. As long as, the way I see it, if somebody can get their job done and it doesn't screw up anybody else in the office, then give the benefit to our employee. If you get the work done, you get the work done. If it doesn't hurt anything in the office, I mean, great, it helps our employees. That's a good thing. And it doesn't cost anything.
yeah, and I was trying to answer both questions, give a benefit to the employees in the county and answer a county need for childcare.
Were you talking specifically that location?
No, I just said that one because we knew that one was available and it's on the market or whatever, and it had been looked at. I don't care where it is, to tell you the truth. I don't have any vested interest in, that specific location. I know that location, the one next to it, which I had shared with Commissioner and I before, back in the 80s or whatever, the dentist's office was a childcare facility at one point in time, along in the last, century. But it's something that we haven't addressed. That building is affordable. I don't know all the ins and outs of that because we were talking about doing for the goals, the big ideas, not all the idiosyncrasies. There's people out there that know this a lot more, but I think something like that might be an answer to a benefit for our employees, should they have children, and a benefit to the community. I know it's not right here, but
Are you suggesting that we would buy a facility?
however it's done, we own other pieces or other real estate that we don't really pay for, right?
Where are those at?
Well, I'm thinking of Point Betsy. We own it.
That's true. We own Point Betsy.
Yeah. That's the one that I'm
Well,
on.
actually,
so,
it belongs to the friends that manage it, but yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm dead set against buying a facility and providing childcare. It's an unknown expense and goes way beyond what the proposal is, so.
I was just trying to look at solutions that we have, what Gary said also about going home, if the director or chair of the department says, yes, you can work from home, that might be another solution. And you had that benefit at one point in time, apparently with David. So I'm just trying to voice ideas and look at the bigger picture for our county too. And I thought that might be an approach to tie several ideas together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we're in the 21st century here where this is becoming more commonplace. Working from home, I think, is a great benefit to offer these folks as well, but then we need to lose the faux pas of, well, you can't work from home. I mean, because that's another barrier we're up against. I guess at the end of the day, we either lose an employee or we are flexible.
Want employees to be able to continue to draw some check. Because that's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have vacation time, sick time, or maternity leave. You can do the FMLA, but no check coming in. You still have to feed your family, still have to keep those options. I like this option. There are some drawbacks. I think there's things that can be worked out. We're not talking a whole lot of people. And I'm
And it's a
sorry, not
pilot.
everybody benefits from everything. I'm the wrong sex to find out, so I'm just,
The dads or grandparents could bring the child in.
well, you.
Actually, it says,
One
if
of,
as long as you're the guardian.
yeah, I mean, one of the people who are interested would actually be a dad.
But a lot of us old farts aren't gonna handle it. It's not the-
Well, actually, this policy doesn't generically allow grandparents. They would have been assigned legal guardianship in order to qualify under this policy.
So this was our effort to be flexible, to keep up with the times, to increase employee morale, to increase, that we care about our employees. This was just an out of the box way, try to benefit our employees and to attract and retain employees. And so this was our stab at that. I guess take it or leave it if you want changes, if you want to tell us to throw it away. I mean, it's fine.
Just a thought. Because this has been bantered back and forth, and the big obstacle right now, it sounds like, is how would other employees react?
Hmm.
Can we do a survey
Sure.
and let the employees, because it's costing us nothing. And if the employees come back and say, yeah, I may never benefit from it, but I'm glad that Tim can,
That's not how unions work though. They always complain when somebody else gets something. They're never happy.
Yeah.
They're never happy.
Guess what? If
Somebody
they
else
come
gets
back and
something.
they-
You're like, why didn't we get it?
if they come back and it becomes obvious that it's going to be disruptive to the workforce,
Yeah.
then that answers your question too.
Mhm.
What about the opinion of the community? I mean, all these offices serve the community. And when we're answering the phones and there's crying babies or people are coming in and there's babies in the office, I mean, there's a public perception too. Is this going to be, and maybe it's going to be 50-50. Half they're going to embrace it and half the people are going to say, these are my taxpayer dollars. And now there's, kids at the county office.
I don't know if I call any professional office anymore that I don't hear a kid in the background. Even when I'm here working on county business, I hear kids in the background constantly.
Well, part of my optimism is that if we start here, maybe this provides the opportunity for other entities to take on this sort of workplace option.
Mhm.
So my straight optimism about it all is that us launching this pilot program could provide the opportunity for other organizations to launch something similar. Like we could help
Model it.
other organizations. So that is just my
Women.
straight optimism about it. But I just think it's a real opportunity for us to make change.
And I talk frequently about modernizing practices. Maybe up till now, this hasn't been relevant, but maybe this is where the workforce is actually going, because there is such a crisis with childcare. We want people to come to work. So it sounds to me like we have to find a creative way to make that happen. Because the world's different today than it was 20 years ago.
And it is, I mean, I have two daughters that are professional but work from home and they tell me they're in meetings quite often and
Mhm.
people have their children,
All the
Like-
time.
they can hear them and it's pretty standard, at least with what they're doing. So.
Even with the things I'm doing, when I meet with agencies for county business, there's always kids waving at me. I mean, it's pretty normal now. I mean, I know a lot of people hate it, but it really is where we're at in our society.
We're gonna go with the employee survey question first.
Yeah, I just opened up a form that I can create a quiz they call it.
That gives us,
And that was one person's comment, but because that seems to be the barrier here, why not just ask the question? And if it comes back and there's support for this, but yet there's other questions that have answered, then we'll get those answers too. For instance, how the community might respond, although that's even more difficult to know.
Is
Would be great to have it in the paper too,
Mhm,
doing a pilot, modeling a program,
mhm,
depending on how you describe it.
mhm.
I think the community could see that if you describe it that way. They are paying attention to one of our top three that we said. It makes us responsive and we actually are being.
Mhm.
I think that type of education or perception in the community will go far.
I think that's a legitimate idea and we could do that simultaneously, right?
Mhm. So we will do a staff survey. And have information brought back to you.
Thanks, Jackie.
hey. Wait, I believe that brings us to our final public comment. Is there
Yeah.
anybody who would like to speak?
Going right now.
Hi, my name is Mary Roebling and I live in Frankfurt. And actually Karen touched on this. This has been really interesting to see you not on Zoom and figure out who goes with what voice. So, but I have a thought. I'm very much in favor of the Hadley reset. And for a number of reasons, but we are a tiny little county and some of the bigger counties have more ability to raise funds than we do. I think it would really benefit us going forward. And being a county that's vital and in search of good businesses, good young families, it makes us vital. But what we don't have, and we used to have, and Art, I know you're not going to know this guy's name, and I have racked my brain. We did used to, in days of yore, have regular articles in the newspaper by, I know Jeff Sandman did it, and who used to be the editor? The other guy was so nice, such a great person.
I know what you're talking about.
You don't remember his name either? Okay, this isn't good. We have to work on this, Art.
Cognitive.
The brain.
Yeah, right.
Okay. But anyway, we used to have almost bi-weekly, pardon?
Roland Holiday?
Yes. Yeah, Roland did it. Roland and Jeff did it. And we had bi-weekly, not long articles updating the public on what was going on at the commissioners' meeting. And this is a way that you can begin to bring the public along with your vision. They aren't going to go, oh, yippee, yippee, I'm going to get to pay some more taxes. But they will say yes if you tell them what the value of those taxes is. And that can't be done in a little blip. It takes a long educational process so that the community feels safe and secure and knowing that you have their best interests in heart, which you do. I've been listening. Nothing sounds nefarious or underhanded here, but there is a tendency when you can't see us, and a lot of us are up working at 9 a.m, or some of us who are retired are in bed, so we have lots of different activities. But if you can find someone with some writing skills, and I know you're all overworked, underhugged, and underpaid, but possibly this is something you could target as a goal. And I think it will help the community understand what you're doing. And it'll also help pass that setback, and not the setback. What are we calling it?
Reset.
Reset. Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your service, all of you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now.
By the way, Bob, Don Howard used to do an article every month.
Right.
So of course, Karen Mallon again, and just by some of the comments, I happen to be probably that jerk employee that maybe appears to not support this for her colleague. That's not the case. I'm a mother of 3. I did work. I kept my kids home. I'm also part of the union, and I don't believe any of us in the union are. If they get it, why don't we? Because basically, the union is pretty far down on that totem pole of what we get. So I just want that to be clear. But I am here, and I do represent at least 8 employees who have concerns about this, but we're too afraid to come because of repercussions of looking as if they didn't agree to this. Whether I agreed or not, I actually had to give it to God about that, because had I been a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old, would I have liked this? Absolutely. So I don't want to come and be a hypocrite that appears that I don't agree with this. What I don't like is a benefit that's offered to 95% of the employees are excluded from. And I understand that not everybody gets those benefits. And I understand because I know I lost some good benefits when I was forced to join the union. And so I understand what that looks like. When you talk about the retirement, Katie, I understand that. But what I think that really needs to be looked at is how it affects the county employees, because we are not a corporation. Only 200 companies nationwide is what I could find. I did a lot of research also. Only 200 companies nationwide are really into this. The state does it, but children can't be around. If the children are sick, they can't even report to work. So there's a lot of nuances that have to be looked at. But I just hope that you really do focus on all of those people up the hill that serve this county 24 hours a day that will never be able to participate in this. And how do you? Because I did get something in my paycheck at maybe the end of the year that said that I make $65,000 for the county. And I don't. I make $17.37 after 11 years. That's what I make. But all of my benefits were included in that. My time off, my vacation, all of that. So I do believe that this is a benefit that does have real dollar values towards an employee that would get that. So like I said, I just hope that it's looked at for everybody and how other people suffer from it. And where I lie in it is, it doesn't matter. I just want everybody to look at the 95% of the employees who will never, ever benefit from this. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to be heard? Seeing none, I will close public comment and look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Let me down.